Oshinoko has the single best first episode for an anime I have ever seen. There, I said it. Now, I wouldn't call myself the end-all be-all when it comes to deciding that, and with less than 500 completed entries on my anime list, there might well be some bangers and hint gems that I've missed. But from what I've seen, nothing comes close to the emotional weight that episode 1 carries. Naturally, it's helped by its 80-minute runtime, but managing to tell such a complete story in that time while still setting up the rest of the series with an interesting plot is a very impressive feat. And there's something to be said about how much this first episode contributed to the hype and popularity surrounding the series, because much of a series' popularity depends on how fast it gets the viewers hooked. No one has time to sit through several episodes worth of content to get to the good stuff. This is especially true nowadays, with there being dozens of new shows airing each season and hundreds, if not thousands, of older shows that are available for everyone to watch. However, while I do truly consider Oshinoko's first episode a masterpiece, the same sadly cannot be said for the rest of the series. I do still enjoy it, and it has some phenomenal plot points and moments, but as someone who has read the manga, certain developments in later arcs did leave quite a bit to be desired. Nonetheless, some of the themes touched upon in the show were handled phenomenally, and a lot of them touch upon some of the darker sides of show business that few other series talk about. In this video, I will talk about what those themes are, how they influence the show, and why I still love the show despite the criticisms I have for it. If you like this type of content, do consider liking and subscribing, as it really helps out the channel. We start, as all things Oshinoko related do, with Ai Hoshino. Although she dies at the end of episode 1, her impact is felt all throughout the series. Aqua's whole motivation is to avenge her death, but even beyond that, the influence of her actions is apparent in every future arc, even if she seemingly had no relation to it. However, even aside from story and character motivations, Ai has a profound impact on the themes of the story. One of the systems Oshinoko criticizes most harshly is the idol culture. Pop culture icons are revered everywhere and put up to an impossibly high standard sometimes. But nowhere is this more apparent than East Asia, with South Korea and Japan being especially bad in that regard. And Ai Hoshino is a perfect example of the worst thing that could happen when the industry goes too far. At its core, it forces idols to lie to their fans. It forces her to fake intimacy with them as it monetizes and profits off their emotional attachment to the idols. And in response for their admiration, these fans then expect their idols to be loyal to them. I know it sounds silly, but these idols are expected to sell this pure girl persona where they don't have any other relationships and are purely dedicated to their fans. This leads to them having to hide their private life, like I did with the fact that she was pregnant. And this type of obsession was also ultimately what led to her death. A fan found out about her kids and felt so betrayed that he ended up killing her. And although this was somewhat orchestrated by a mastermind, it still speaks to the dangers this industry brings with it. But the reason why I think the criticism of idol culture works so well in Oshinoko is because it doesn't only show the bad sides of it. Most idol fans are just regular people that genuinely support their idols, feel inspired by them, and find comfort in them. But on the other hand, the system is fundamentally flawed. It to work as the executives intended to, the idols need to lie, and the fans need to believe the lie for the illusion to work. However, idol culture isn't the only part of the entertainment industry Oshinoko criticizes. When talking about things being built on lies, reality TV is on the top of that list. Despite reality being in its name, in actuality, reality TV is anything but. These types of shows are structured around scripted scenarios and narratives that will bring the producers the most amount of views. Contestants are often placed in scenarios which encourage conflict and humiliation, and then use their editing to spice those scenes up even more. This is especially true for dating reality TV shows like the one Akane and Aqua go on. While the authenticity is what the audience is sold on, the producers crank up the drama to bump up viewership, creating tension between the contestants, manufacturing relationships when there isn't really anything there. And since there is this narrative they want to create, producers do everything in their power to create a story that will capture audiences. After all, a reality TV show has hours upon hours of content, with only a small part of it actually making the final cut. Editors, if they wish to do so, can remove context and exaggerate mistakes in a scene. By doing that, they can highlight negative reactions of people and paint them as a villain, even if their actions were completely normal and understandable in context. The reason they do this is honestly quite simple. Creating archetypes to put the participants in makes it easier for the audience to root for or against someone. Now, that's fine if you're the romantic lead. Might get a bit upset if you're typecast as a comedic relief. But where it really starts to become a problem is if you are presented as the villain. And that's exactly what happened to Akane. She was painted as the villain in the show, and once it happens, it's already over. The producers and editors keep pushing that role on her, and the audience views every one of her actions through that lens. While that would be rough enough by itself, add social media to the mix and it quickly becomes dangerous. We all know how ruthless the internet can be, and when someone is painted as the villain, the audience will hammer down on them without an ounce of consideration for their feelings. From spreading rumors and insulting memes about them to directly harassing them, or worst of all, doxing them and their family members. And what many don't realize is that the people they're criticizing aren't just characters on a screen, but actual real people with actual real feelings. It's not easy to deal with thousands, if not millions of people publicly judging every little action of yours and invading your privacy, and Akane felt that firsthand. It even became so bad that she considered ending her own life to escape these waves of negativity directed towards her. Unfortunately, these types of stories aren't uncommon. As much as it is on the audience not to harass the actors, a large amount of criticism also falls on the producers and editors. They often prioritize drama over reality, even in situations where the participants could get harmed just to increase their ratings. But while the reality TV show part might not resonate too much with you, after all, I know a lot of people who don't consume that type of content at all, the next part will probably hit much closer to home. The 2.5D stage play arc was my and many other people's favorite arc, and even besides the awesome story beats and cool character development, it touched on an issue which many of you are most intimately aware of. Popular manga, Tokyo Blade, is getting adapted, in this case into live action stage play, but what should be a momentous occasion for both the author and the audience turned into something very frustrating if not handled correctly. Just a few arcs earlier, the manga Sweet Drama got adapted into a live action TV show and it got ripped to shreds online. Because when looking at adaptations like this, it's important to realize that there are factors that play into it outside of them just wanting to create the best possible product they can. At the end of the day, adaptations exist to sell the source material. While it is beneficial for that adaptation to be good, it is often more profitable just to settle for decent adaptations for several different series instead of making every adaptation the best it could possibly be. A large part of the issue with adaptations comes down to the production committees. These are comprised of several different parties, each with their own different interests. The original publishers obviously want to protect the IP, but they are only part of the equation. Production studios and investors, on the other hand, the largest amount of profit possible. But that's not all. Talent agencies want their actors to get as much screen time as possible, the marketing team to create viral moments, better advertise their product. What ends up happening in the end is a compromise between all parties, which in turn creates a less than ideal product which neither the author nor the fans are really satisfied with. Speaking of the audience, it is often tough to satisfy their expectations. What fans often want or even expect is a perfect adaptation where all scene, important moments and characters are recreated faithfully. But that's often not possible or even really ideal if you look at it objectively. Even disregarding things like space, time and budget constraints, in an ideal world, a work of art should be changed depending on what medium it is being presented through. Let's take Tokyo Blade for example. While the manga includes things like large-scale battles, dynamic action scenes, and elaborate environments, those things are hard to pull off on a theater stage. So while fans might think they want a one-to-one recreation of the source material, letting the director innovate on some things to make them better suited for a medium might be a better choice. This is honestly quite an interesting bit of meta commentary, because the other work of Aka Akasaka, Kaguya-sama Love is War, has just recently been revealed to get an anime original ending. However, while the arc does criticize the industry, far less negative on it than on the other aspects, because at the end of the day, despite meddling by the production committee, adaptations are a work of love towards the original material. Even if it doesn't work out perfectly all the time, the actors and directors still put their blood, sweat and tears into making the show they're producing into the best thing it could possibly be. The last thing I want to cover in this video is something that has only happened in the most recent episodes of the anime, so if you're not caught up, feel free to skip this part. Now, with that out of the way, let's discuss what is in my opinion one of the worst parts of the entertainment industry. Tabloids and entertainment journalism can and have ruined many lives with barely, if any, upside to speak for it. They claim to be exposing some hidden reality the public needs to be aware of, when in reality, they rarely tell the full story, instead depending on speculation and sensational framing to get the clicks they want. This can best be seen in the situation Kana found herself in. She got caught sneaking out of a man's house at night, but there was no room for her to explain herself. It was a complicated situation, but the public doesn't care for silly things like context. Now, you can't solely blame the industry. After all, it's the public that wants this type of information. They exist and thrive off of clicks and engagement, so if the public wasn't interested, they wouldn't be doing this type of story. But it does create an incentive for them to twist the story, exaggerate details, and publish rumors as fast as they can. Instead of caring about accuracy and truthfulness like journalists should, they just care about getting as much engagement as they can. And honestly, it's frightening to think about how fast something like this can ruin someone's reputation. Especially with the advent of the internet, it only takes a few hours for a scandal like that to circulate through every corner of the internet. And even if the person in question comes out with their side of the story, the public will have already built an opinion that will be hard to change even if presented with facts. And once again, it comes down to the awfully high expectations the general public has for these celebrities. Expected to be human, authentic and relatable, but at the same time never saying or doing anything controversial. The celebrities then inevitably go on to not meet those expectations. It gives the audience the opinion they have the right to act morally superior to them. In a sense, the scandal culture is a collaboration between the audience and the industry, both parts having equal blame in the situation. Even though I think Akasaka lost the plot somewhere throughout the series, some of the themes he touched upon throughout it were really powerful. What makes the series so interesting to me isn't Aqua's quest for revenge, but rather all the arcs exploring different parts of the entertainment industry and what kind of illusions they sell to the audience. Be it the idol industry, reality TV, adaptations, or the scandal industry. Each of them are built on selling a certain illusion to the audience. The story does something pretty interesting with that. It tells a story criticizing the system while still being part of it itself. Oshi no Ko, at the end of the day, is a piece of entertainment that simultaneously reminds us of the harsh and uncomfortable truth behind a lot of the entertainment we consume. Now, I'll be honest, this series isn't perfect, far from it actually. It starts off incredibly strong, some entertaining and powerful arcs, but sort of loses itself at times throughout the series. And that ending, it's best if I don't speak about it. But hey, if Kaguya-sama can get an anime original ending, maybe so can this. Man can dream. Thanks for watching.